like the ADRC funds, some of the other funding that came through. Computers and related was the category that had the biggest increase for, I think, both in 2020 and 2021, which makes sense because so many people were involved, programs were involved in programs that distributed either smartphones or tablet devices to combat social isolation. Let's go to the next. And then this slide, in terms of other state financing activities that in which AT would have obtained at reduced cost, like cooperative buying programs, shows individuals served and savings. And you see that big jump from FY20 to, or big jump in FY20. And that was basically just due to an anomaly in how projects were reported. There was kind of an innovative approach to providing AT and UDL learning that resulted in, was reported in a larger number. And, but also in terms of the amounts, in terms of savings provided, pretty consistent from FY20 to 21. So that is it. Go to the next.
It helps to unmute. Thanks, Marty. Okay, so the next state level activity that we're going to take a look at is reuse. In FY19, 57,588 recipients received 78,412 devices through reuse services for a cost savings of approximately $30.5 million. In FY20, 38,692 recipients received 65,638 devices for approximately $23 million in savings. And in FY21, 49,502 recipients received 68,501 devices for approximately $28.5 million in savings. Although the FY21 is still below pre-pandemic numbers, progress is being made. So in FY20, many programs saw a decrease in donations to their reuse program due to the pandemic. And while donations continue to be down overall in FY21, some programs did mention that they were seeing an uptick. In addition, some directors mentioned that they were still not allowing walk-ins and were requiring appointments, which may have contributed to fewer requests for reuse services. Some directors noticed that CARES Act dollars may also have contributed to the decrease, with some folks receiving new assistive technology and no longer needing to obtain an item through reuse. Programs that noted an uptick in their reuse numbers contributed the increase to collaborating with other agencies and organizations. For example, partnering with school districts to support the assistive technology needs of students with disabilities. At least one program found an innovative way to expand its reuse services by partnering with an organization that delivers food to those living in rural communities. Okay, so the next state level activity is short-term device loan for decision-making purpose. In FY19, 23,860 recipients received a device loan resulting in approximately $18 million in savings. In FY20, 17,185 recipients received a device loan resulting in approximately $13 million in savings. And in FY21, 16,925 recipients received a device loan for approximately $13.5 million in savings. Although 47 programs, 84%, were still below pre-pandemic numbers in FY21, directors identified contributing factors and are making changes to increase device loans in FY22. Some of the reasons identified for the decrease in device loans include the need to restructure the device loan program, staffing changes, including staffing shortages, changes to subcontractors, and the need to develop new contracts, which included new language and requirements. For many, this was a lengthy process that meant some programs were without one or more subcontractors during FY21, which in turn contributed to the low numbers. Some directors noticed that the need for decision-making loans may have been impacted by consumers bypassing the loan process altogether and receiving new devices through other resources as part of CARES Act funding. More programs relied on shipping for their device loan programs. And while many customers seem to appreciate the convenience, program directors noticed that at times they had a difficult time getting completed customer surveys returned in a timely fashion. Okay, so short-term device loan for non-decision-making purpose, such as accommodations, temporary loaner, and training, including professional development. In FY19, 12,338 recipients received loans for approximate cost savings of $4.3 million. In FY20, 7,269 recipients received device loans for approximately $2.5 million in savings. And in FY21, 8,018 recipients received device loans, which resulted in approximately $2.8 million in savings. There was a 35% decrease in non-decision-making short-term device loans in FY21. Again, the pandemic was most likely the reason programs received fewer requests for non-decision-making short-term loans. While some programs saw an increase in a request for device loans for accommodation due to the pandemic, they also saw an increase in requests to extend the device loan period due to supply chain issues, such as consumers waiting to receive new devices or waiting for their device to be repaired. Some programs also struggled with purchasing new devices for their inventory due to supply chain issues. And FY21 was the year that some of you decided to take the plunge and purchase 3D printers in order to generate low-tech items such as key guards and pencil grips. Okay, the last state level activity we're going to take a look at is device demonstration. In FY19, 64,668 participants received demonstrations of 33,799 devices, excuse me, with an approximate cost savings of $1.7 million. In FY20, 39,396 participants received demonstrations of 21,533 devices that resulted in approximately $1 million in savings. And in FY21, 37,322 participants received demonstrations of 21,640 devices for a little over $1 million in savings. Compared to FY19, demonstrations were down 42% in FY21. Comments submitted in the APR suggest that COVID-19 continued to impact demonstrations, with some programs noticing fewer requests, which again may be due to folks receiving new devices through other funding sources, including CARES Act funding, and bypassing the demonstration service altogether. Some programs experienced staffing shortages, either internally or with their subcontractors, which impacted their ability to provide demonstrations. And in addition to shipping devices for short-term loan, programs were now shipping devices, duplicate devices, to provide virtual hands-on demonstrations. At times, this created inventory shortages, not to mention that it created an additional shipping cost for programs which tested the limits of their budgets. To eliminate or alleviate the stress of the added shipping costs, some programs turn to having staff or colleagues deliver devices, as well as partnering with other organizations such as healthcare, library systems, and delivery services to help them deliver items. And now I'm going to turn the mic back over to Marty.
Yeah, if there's anything, if there's any positive aspect of COVID, which there aren't many, it could be just in terms of training, allowing us to reach out more to people that maybe would not be able to take advantage of training, like in rural areas or in areas that maybe you haven't been able to reach out to before. In terms of numbers of participants, still haven't reached quite the FY19 levels, but we're getting close. About 103,000 participants were trained in FY19, dropped to about 82,000 in FY20, and then has rebounded in FY21 to 98,736. And just a wide variety of different topics. Some of them really were kind of related to the pandemic or focused on areas that were related to the pandemic, while others were just related to a lot of different areas, either certain kinds of AT devices or in some cases, AT policies or assistive technology funding that's available. And just to touch on some of the training topics that people reported. One was in-depth training to professionals, like different kinds of therapists. A fair amount of training for state agencies like ADRC staff, vocational rehabilitation, pre-employment transition staff on AT solutions, money follows a person staff on transition coordinators who are working with transitioning people out of institutions like nursing homes. Online learning solutions and supports, aging in place safely through assistive technology, different kinds of employment solutions available through assistive technology. Definitely a lot of training related to social isolation and different aspects of tablets and apps and other assistive technology to combat social isolation. And then one on increasing alternative augmentative communication accessibility using 3D printing. So there were some sessions on 3D printing, and then some on smart home supports, smart home and supports for independent living. And then jump to the next. And then this is just a slide showing the numbers in terms of ICT training, which of course is also a required training. It's gone up every year. So maybe that's not a surprise in the last 2 years, just because of the nature of COVID and people having to do more remotely. FY19, the number was about 6,800. FY20, it went up to about 8,200. And then this past year, we're almost 11,000 participants for different kinds of ICT training. So it definitely makes sense and is rising. One thing that we'll mention to stay tuned for, we did announce earlier that we'll have some self-directed ICT training courses coming up. And so we'll be announcing more about that within the next couple of weeks. So go to next. I'm going to turn it over to Dave.
Thanks, Marty. I'm going to speak to you a little bit about the state leadership activity around technical assistance. As you know, the AT Act provides a combined description of both training and technical assistance. And I believe most of you have achieved the goal of understanding the difference. But technical assistance is defined as a direct problem-solving service provided by a state AT program to assist programs and agencies in improving their services, their management, policies, or outcomes. And you know that technical assistance can be provided in person, either directly or by electronic means such as telephone or video or emails, all those other kinds of ways that you deliver your services during these times. Within technical assistance areas, a mandatory transition activities that are required of you to report as well. And your transition activities can be reported either as a training event or a technical assistance initiative, but not both of them. So it is important to keep that in mind throughout the year. AT programs have provided direct problem-solving services, technical assistance to assist many different agencies and programs in improving their services, management, policies, or outcomes. In fiscal year 2021, your TA topics included public safety, supports for deaf of hard of hearing, focusing on education, mental health, and law enforcement. Some programs provided technical assistance around accessibility in public spaces, and you identified some of those as museums and parks and recreational areas. Next. Additional technical assistance topics that programs addressed in fiscal year 21 included effective use of alternative and augmentative communication, as well as the development of assistive technology curriculum for professionals. Some programs provided technical assistance for accessible housing within their state or territory. A number of programs provided technical assistance to the provision of home and community-based services. Some programs provided technical assistance for accommodation in both the secondary and post-secondary education. Some programs provided technical assistance around the ADA and competitive integrated employment and general employment accommodations. Some programs provided technical assistance around the topic of professional development. Next. Throughout fiscal year 2021, your programs reached a wide variety of technical assistance recipients. Programs provided technical assistance to state agencies and work groups, to their court systems, to museums. Technical assistance was provided by y'all to your No Wrong Door systems. Some programs provided technical assistance to students involved in the medical fields or occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech and language professionals. Some technical assistance was provided to the ADRCs and the area agencies on aging staff. Next, please. In the area of the required transition training and technical assistance, during FY21, programs provided innovative training and technical assistance to address transition from school to work or post-secondary education and transition to community living. A few examples that I'd like to share with you is the Going Home Project. It was designed to help seniors and other individuals with disability transition from nursing home facilities impacted by COVID-19 to their own self-directed care in the community. Another example of TA was pre-employment program designed for undergraduates on the autism spectrum. The third example is technical assistance in transition training to career tech recruiters, working with high school students and adult learners. At this point, I'd like to turn over the presentation back to Kim, who's going to talk to you about information and assistance.
Thanks, Dave. So let's take a look at information and assistance numbers. In FY19, 220,912 recipients received information and assistance. In FY20, the number of recipients was 187,251. And in FY21, the number was, drumroll please, 242,643. This means that information and assistance numbers are on the rise and exceeded pre-pandemic numbers. Well done, a round of applause for everyone. So the pandemic provided programs with a number of opportunities for collaboration and coordination related to information and assistance. A few programs began collaborating with other agencies to provide and collect AT-related information and assistance data. However, on the flip side, at least one program mentioned that a newly funded state hotline resulted in information and assistance calls being diverted from their program and forwarded to the new state hotline. The need for assistive technology and assistive technology services during the pandemic continued to grow during FY21. But thanks to the great work that your programs did in providing information and assistance to people with disabilities, their families, and the professionals that serve them, information, much needed and critical information related to AT, was provided during a very challenging year. Okay, public awareness. So as you'll recall, the FY21 APR asked you to report an innovative or high impact public awareness event. Directors reported conducting a variety of public awareness activities, including virtual lunch and learns, social media campaigns, including promoting AT Awareness Day. In fact, many programs expanded the role of social media in their public awareness campaigns. Some of you shared AT videos on TikTok, which generated a lot of interest. One program mentioned that their smart home on wheels was showcased during the FY21 virtual CES, better known as Consumer Electronics Show. Many of you provided conferences, virtual or in person. Directors noted that public awareness events help them expand their reach to people unable to easily attend in-person events. However, virtual events excluded individuals who have unreliable access to, or any access to internet for that matter. So the lesson learned is that both virtual and in-person events are needed to reach the broadest audience possible. Many programs participated in community fairs. Some of you were involved with public service announcements, and others of you were lucky enough to have TV or radio coverage of your events. At least one program teamed up with a local organization to host an outdoor event featuring adapted biking, kayaking, and other fun activities. Coordination and collaboration was on the rise in FY21, so another big yahoo. The majority of ATAC programs, 49 or 88%, reported conducting a coordination or collaboration activity. Partners included state agencies such as Department of Education, Vocational Rehabilitation Services, Health and Human Services. Some programs partnered up with insurance companies, others with the CDC, Protection and Advocacy, ADRCs, AAAs, No Wrong Door systems. But wait, there's more. ALS, local government agencies such as their mayor's office. Some of you worked with Habitat for Humanity, Arts Advisory Committee, international health organizations. Some of you worked with your DD councils or DD administration, or the ARC, universities, Muscular Dystrophy Association, and tribal nations. So these innovative and high impact collaborative efforts resulted in a wide range of activities to increase awareness of and access to assistive technology and assistive technology services. Examples of activities conducted in FY21 include hosting virtual maker events, supporting vaccination efforts, such as providing assistive technology for on-site use at vaccination clinics. Others were involved with accessibility review of digital materials or websites. Some of you collaborated to develop AT curriculum, online learning modules, and assessment tools, while other programs focused on addressing social isolation through surveys, outreach, and other services. At least one program reported collaborating to create a website targeting the aging population. Other examples include increasing home modifications. Some of you participated in your Tech First initiatives or assisted with waiver assessments related to home and vehicle modifications, as well as teaching, such as graduate level SLP students. Some of you worked to increase access to AT devices and services statewide by collaborating with other state agencies, while other programs focused on promoting AT leadership within education through targeted professional development events. And some of you focused on educating underserved communities. And now I am going to turn the mic back over to Marty.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about state improvement initiatives. It's not a mandatory reporting element, but about 20 programs did report one or more state improvement activities. And just a reminder, those are activities undertaken by the state or territory AT program to affect substantive changes in legislation, policy or practices of state agencies or other organizations. Could involve training, could involve technical assistance, and other activities that are designed to result in some type of positive changes for folks with disabilities. Could be guidance documents that provide an overview or clarification of federal laws and policies, or of perhaps just different distance apps for individuals with disabilities. Just going over some of the state improvement activities that some states reported. There was one there was multi state agencies to increase competitive integrated employment. A partnership to develop an emergency broadband program within a state. There were several accessible ICT initiatives within states. There were a couple of states that had enacted legislation. One example was to allow state agencies to acquire assistive technology to address the needs of employees, customers, and job applicants. One was developing some training software and deploy it at a state agency level. There was Money Follows the Person supplemental funding to build capacity for AT and Money Follows the Person programs. And then there was another that reported a state improvement activity for national accessible educational materials, working to develop a coordinated system for providing accessible educational materials and accessible technologies just across the whole continuum of services in the state. And go to next. So leverage funding. 42 AT programs received a leverage funding during 2001. That's 75% of programs, which is a big number. Just looking at the amount from FY19 through 21, about just shy of $24 million in leverage funding in FY19. Went down somewhat in FY20 and went up to over 34 million in 2021. A lot of that is due to some of the funding that came in to operate programs through the ADRCs or state aging programs. And it's all over the board in terms of whether the funding came through public agencies or the federal government. Some states receive direct appropriations from their legislature, and then some receive private dollars from foundations. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Dave.
Thank you, Marty. We're going to do a little wrap up and give you some final thoughts at this point. And I want to say that even on your most challenging days over the past year, your programs have persevered and made a big difference. And from a grateful nation and from a grateful TA providers, we'd like to thank you for all the work that you're doing. In all the areas that we've addressed today, whether it was state financing through direct loan programs or other forms of state financing, your reuse activities, your device loanings, the training and the ICT trainings that you have conducted, the technical assistance that you have provided to other agencies and entities within your states or territories, your transition activities, and the information and assistance that you have provided, your public awareness, your coordination and collaboration, your state improvement activities, and the great increase in your leverage funding really speak loudly about how hard you have worked to provide the services required under the Assistive Technology Act within your states and territories. The increase in leverage funding alone speaks volumes to the efforts that you made to reach out to those individuals, those agencies within your states and territories that received additional funding from the CARES Act and other federal funding sources when you did not. You opened the doors to partnerships and you created suggestions and ideas to move forward during the pandemic. And you really should be very pleased with all that you have accomplished. Looking at the data allows you to examine how your program is faring within your geographic area. But it also allows you the opportunity to compare and contrast different years so you can monitor it and see how your program's activities are achieving your goals from year to year, as well as to provide you with some insight onto improvements that you might make, or in the aggregate, looking at other programs so that you can identify peers who might have information or direction. This information provides you opportunity to see where there might be new areas for partnerships or activities that you haven't given thought to before. These are all very important things, and you need to know that you are achieving, you are moving forward, even through this time of 2 years of pandemic. As we approach what we hope is the endemic, we are seeing your numbers increase, and we are very hopeful that in FY22 you will be achieving or returning to pre-pandemic levels of services with all the great innovative and active ways that you're providing services to the people who are important to receiving assistive technology, assistance, access, and acquisition. Next. At this time, I'd like to open it up to any questions that you might have regarding the information that we've shared today. Jamie, is there a way to unmute everyone?
Let me go over there and do that for you. So Alan has his hand raised. I'm going to unmute him.
Thank you. Go ahead, Alan.
Hi, Dave, Marty, and Kim. Thanks so much for this presentation. I just wanted to say, and I see some chats are going to echo what I'm saying. I really appreciated having a data presentation that was, I felt really aspirational and inspirational. You gave us a lot of, you showed us trends, but you also talked a lot about what people are doing, which I think is really important for folks to know that, if there's things that you're doing that you don't feel like you're getting headway or making any movement in your activities. I think it's really important to see what other folks are doing, try something different, or to try it maybe a different twist. I think it's really great, and thanks so much for doing this presentation. Really appreciate it.
If anyone else would like to speak, you could raise your hand. You have a question? Well, Tammy has her hand raised. Go ahead, Tammy.
I just wanted to follow up with what Alan was saying. Yeah, this has been great. This is great information. And I also wanted to just give you guys a shout out. I think the last couple of years has been very challenging for everyone, and you guys have certainly risen to the occasion. Jumped right in on some trainings that we needed right at the very beginning of the pandemic, and you've stayed right on top of it. And just speaking for North Carolina, very beneficial for us. And so I just wanted to say thank you, not only for this presentation, but just being on top of things the last couple of years. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you, Tammy. Jeannie Kroll has her hand raised, Jamie.
Hey there. I just really love seeing all the different activities that everybody's doing, especially in the midst of the pandemic, and people are still being so inventive, and I just love that. And I would love, and I'm all in on copying those things. So if we could ever have a session on or just, an email would be great too, on sharing like who did what and maybe some more information about it and who we could go to do some of these things. That would be the best. So just thought I'd share.
Thanks, Jeannie.
Thanks, Jeannie. This is Kim. I just wanted to jump in there and add, there's also going to be plenty of time to share cool ideas and stuff during the affinity group. So make sure to take advantage of that time on Thursday as well.
Jamie, Jessie has her hand raised.
She got me. I just wanted to share that data has been really, really useful to me in a variety of ways. And I appreciate you guys pushing that out there so that people understand the importance of it. I know when I'm working with subcontractors, and now I'm an implementing agency versus the lead, being able to utilize that data and compare our numbers over years and to states with similar demographics And it really helps paint that picture of need and encourage folks to move along in the right direction when they can see it in numbers.
Thank you, Jesse. You're absolutely correct. The numbers are there. The numbers are strong. The numbers can tell you many different things. There's an old saying that the numbers will tell you anything you want if you torture them long enough.
But they also will paint that picture when you're not doing well to help move that forward and to get that enthusiasm, or at least, the fear of the powers that be, whatever it takes to move things in the right direction.
That is indeed correct. That's where I was headed. That sometimes with all that you have to keep track of, the numbers become an annual reminder of where some things may have dropped off, and where others are succeeding that you may not have realized. Anyone else before we give you back a little bit of time to take a break between now and the next session? I don't see any more hands raised, so I thank you all for attending the 2021 Highlighting the Work of AT Programs by the Numbers. And I invite you to join us for the next session. And I'll turn this back over to Marty.
Yeah, the only thing I have to add is, join us for the next session at 1:45 Eastern, how to energize and activate your team with a results focus. So I think that'll be a great session. So we will see you back by 1:45.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye all.